Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. Is there perhaps spin-off material there? The concept of SpongeBob spin-offs is a bit of a sore subject. So when one of my live stream chatters posed a simple what-if question on whether or not there should be a spin-off based around the legacy of Bikini Bottom's most beloved superhero duo, I at first shooed away the idea. But after some consideration, it might just be a super idea. Do you think a Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy spinoff would be good? Steven said he did see spinoffs happening, not that he opposed them. Yeah, I know that's a whole thing where it's spinoffs and all that. I mean, in concept, am not against the idea of SpongeBob spinoffs. I'm not against the idea of spinoffs of any show. It just has to work, you know? A Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy spinoff, I feel like it wouldn't work for a couple of reasons. So if you say spinoff, you would mean like a prequel, like where they were young. So the point of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, what makes them funny, is that they're old. And that they used to be superheroes. And the joke is that, you know, at the time of SpongeBob Season 1... that was quite an animation. At the time of Season 1, 1999, superheroes became popular in around the 1930s. So this is about 65-ish years from the introduction of the concept of superheroes. So Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy... Evil! So Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy are supposed to be the superheroes who were popular in like the 1950s and 60s. You know, say that like they started in the 30s, but like the 50s and 60s is probably around when the people who were making the show were young. And probably mostly watched like Batman and Superman and stuff in like the 60s or read the comic books or movies. 60s, 70s. I'd say more like 50s, 60s. That's a big SpongeBob thing. So the joke about Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy is that they're those superheroes as if they actually aged and became old. So if you had a show about Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy like in their prime, it's kind of the Buzz Lightyear problem. Like I never seen Lightyear. And I wasn't super interested in it because, like, the point of, like, Buzz Lightyear is that he's the thing that Buzz Lightyear is within the universe is a toy. You know, he's a toy that's based on a concept that is, like, stereotypical space show. So the thing that Buzz Lightyear is based on, which is basically like Star Wars, Star Trek, kind of a combination of all those things. It already exists. You know, you're just making what was a parody, like the idea of like making Lightyear as a movie. And again, I hadn't seen the movie. Maybe it's the best movie ever. I've never seen it. But like conceptually, I didn't like the idea of Lightyear as a movie because it's like the whole thing that Buzz Lightyear is that he's a parody. Buzz Lightyear is a parody of those kinds of space traveling things. So you're just making another Star Wars at that point, but you're making it serious. But the character wasn't designed to be serious. So that's the same thing with Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, is you would just be having like a SpongeBob-themed superhero show, but you wouldn't have the same joke with them being old. Like we already have in the main show episodes that are superhero-themed. You would basically have a whole show that's just the superhero episodes of SpongeBob. You know, I don't know how much that would sustain like a whole show. But interesting question. Could a Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy spin-off where it functions to something like Batman Beyond work then? Like when Batman was old and passed down the suit? Like a new Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy? I don't know. Like, I mean, I like I said, I guess anything can work if it's executed in a certain way. Things don't really fail. Like some things are conceptually worse than others. Like I would say like Camp Coral, it just SpongeBob babies and they're at a camp and it just conceptually leads to a lot of problems. A Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy one, like the way you describe it, it's like, you know, I could see that as like it could be one of those things where you look at the idea and you would see advertising for it, you'd be like, oh, like this is like just like a cheap thing. And then like someone goes in and they do it like amazing, you know, and it could actually be an interesting look at the superhero side of the SpongeBob universe using that world, you know, because it would be kind of like, it would be like kind of an Aquaman show, but a cartoon in a bit of a sillier world. Like, I guess I could see it. I don't know. I'm kind of warming up to the idea. I guess I'm questioning, would it work better if it was a prequel Or should it be like the passing on the suit? It's hard because obviously, you know, the original voice actors of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy have since passed, so we don't really have them anymore. Like passing on the torch. I think it could be a cool idea. But definitely it would be really hard to execute. Like you'd have to really do it right. You know, it'd have to be just the right amount of funny and serious. I've never made that connection to Buzz Lightyear before. Yeah, it's really common because when a franchise gets big, you'll sometimes want to make spin-offs in ways that conceptually don't work too well. I've said sort of the same thing with like the Patrick Star show, where like I'm not super sold on Patrick being a protagonist of a show. Patrick is best when he plays off of other characters. And as a main character of a show, that doesn't read as well. And again, I haven't seen the Patrick show, so like maybe they work around that really well. You should make a video about the Mermaid Man spin-off concept. I guess I could think about it. I think it can work if you went full in on the parody, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy spin-off. There's an origin story where they have a ton of over-the-top comic stuff happen to them, and then it's something mundane that transformed them. Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I think like parodies, they can get old, especially if they're a whole show. What I think would be funny is if they pass the torch to someone younger, but that younger person is still like 75 compared to their 80. Oh, that actually is that's actually really clever. So like it's a whole like passing the torch to the younger generation, but it's like some other old person. That's a really funny idea. I feel like a way it would work really well is if you separated it a lot from Bikini Bottom. I think that's kind of a problem with a lot of their current spin-offs is that it's the same cast of characters. Like the Patrick Star show just prominently features SpongeBob. Like he's just there. You know, it's weird, like in a spin-off, when the main character, a spin-off usually, and obviously a spin-off can be a bunch of things. There could be spin-offs that are just different versions of the main characters. Like with the Patrick show, you have SpongeBob in the show. But when you have a spin-off, you kind of have to avoid putting in, especially the main character of the other show, unless it's a big deal. I guess I don't want to give spoilers for any shows. I guess it's a spoiler to bring up any spin-offs I'm thinking of. But there's times where there are spin-offs where the spin-off is about a character who is not related. I'm sorry, the spin-off is about a character who was related to the main character in some way in the original show. They become their own main character of a new show. And then when the main character of the original show shows up in the spin-off, it's like a really big deal. But like SpongeBob is just like a side character in the Patrick Star show, from my understanding, is that he shows up pretty frequently. So it's like, it's weird because it's like, well, like that's the character who was designed to be the main character, who we've arbitrarily made not the main character, so that this character who was designed to not be the main character is now the main character arbitrarily. So like something like a Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy spinoff, I think you'd have to be really separate from Bikini Bottom, but like in a really important and sparing spots, you reference the characters from the base SpongeBob show. You have times where it's like really important and they come up. It would be a pretty good genre shift for sure. Like, because that is another thing that I think SpongeBob is struggling with its spin-offs, is that they're not really meaningful genre shifts. Like the Patrick Star show, it's just another comedy where silly things happen. It's not a meaningfully different kind of show. If it was it's just Patrick's the main character instead of SpongeBob. They have one episode where the villain uses a shrink ray to terrorize the citizens, and Mermaid Man turns his belt upside down to set his ray from Minnie to Wumbo. Did you set it to Wumbo? I don't know if they need to bring back the Wumbo joke. I feel like they would if they did a Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy spinoff. It's just like, you're just asking for it at that point for them to bring back the Wumbo joke. What villains would be good for the Mermaid Man spinoff? I guess that would be the thing that would tie it the most into the main SpongeBob show, is that all of the villains would be the Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy villains, just with whoever the new superhero character is. I guess the thing that would be important is that the main character, whoever the new superhero is, should be a character we don't know about, like a totally new character. It'd be hard to get people to warm up to that, though, because you'd really have to sell them on a new character in a pre-established world. I want to see SpongeBob do the 6-7 thing in the new season of the SpongeBob show. I guess if they write it well. SpongeBob isn't really topical like that, though. You know, SpongeBob always feels kind of timeless. If SpongeBob did a 6-7 joke, it would date it. Like South Park in the recent season, they had a lot of like 6, 7 stuff. But South Park is so topical. That South Park's whole thing is being topical. So I didn't find it annoying in South Park when they had 6, 7 in South Park. Because it's like, well, that's the point of South Park, is that it's topical. 6, 7 is timeless. It is like the least timeless thing ever. It is purely 2025 to 2026. I mean, maybe 6, 7 will be timeless. I don't know. If people still say 6, 7 in 2040, then yeah, it's timeless. But it's too quick to say, you know? 69 is timeless. 69 is absolutely timeless. 67, not so much.